Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we discuss the Black Templars and their use of Psykers, the necessary evil. A spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Warhammer 40k novel Broken Crusade by author Steven B Fischer. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, now, one of the most fascinating aspects of the legendary Black Templars is the extremism of the chapter. Alone, of at least the prominent main chapters, they worship the Emperor as a god, fully embracing the Imperial Creed and faith. Depending on your point of view, you could argue it's their greatest strength or their greatest weakness. Indeed, faith has become the Imperium's most potent weapon in this time of chaos and gods. However, embracing the wider Imperium's creed, it is inescapable. The Templars have also embraced, become infected by, the Imperium's zealotry, its paranoia. For the Imperial Creed, it is enforced to purge the heretic, beware the Psyker and mutant, and abhor the alien. And thus it is so for the Black Templars too. Suffer not the unclean to live. Abhor the witch. Destroy the witch. And yet, of course, the Templars, like the Imperium, needs that so-called witch. Depends on them to survive. The Psykers to send and receive astropathic communication from across the galaxy. Navigators to enable them to fly across the stars. For without them, none of the Templars' famed crusades would even be possible. A contradiction that lies at the heart of the Imperium, let alone the chapter. And let's not even get started on the Emperor himself being a Psyker. But so it is, the Templars exist in this state, the world of extremes. And I've always been fascinated to see what life is like aboard a Templar vessel. How they interact with these servants they so despise, and yet need so much. And thankfully, we received a glimpse of this within the novel Broken Crusade. Now, this isn't the most stable of situations, as the Templar vessel, the Dauntless Honour, struggles amid the currents of the warp, with its Gellerfield flickering. And it's how the Templar Castellan Emmerich responds to this situation that gives us some real interesting insights into their way of thinking, their bias in dealing with their psychic servants. How upon receiving an update from the mortal ship's captain of the difficulties, and despite being told everything's all in order, Emmerich still immediately decides to head to check on the astropathic choir, accompanied by his chief chaplain advisor, named Dant. Is this wise, I ask, setting my hand against the small ornate door. Its ancient plasteel panels are carved with the relief of a single eye, open and wreathed in flame. Even through the ceramite of my gauntlets, I feel an unnatural cold behind its barrier. No, Castellan, Dant replies, but I agree that it is necessary. I require neither the chaplain's approval nor his assurance, but his support bolsters me nonetheless. Together, we step into the abode of the astropaths that belong to my ship, before we are swallowed by a darkness too deep for even my oculobe to fully overcome. The vaulted chamber before me appears in blurred layers of muted grey, A single hall, partitioned by ornately carved half-walls into a labyrinthine complex of cells and corridors. That the astropaths of the Dauntless Honours Choir are blind is no secret. That they require their servants and acolytes to dwell in darkness alongside them is not something I had known until this moment. In more than a decade as the Dauntless Honours Castellan, I have never sullied myself by entering these chambers. So immediately here, we get the startling revelation that never in all of his 10 years of command has Castellan Emmerich been to the Astropathic Choir's chambers. Never in a time of pressing action, never to receive or deliver message personally, never for mere personal inspection, or to simply check on his full crew. And so we can see right away, it's like a dirty secret he pretends to ignore, like a reluctant sin aboard his vessel he prefers to forget about. And yeah, sure, Space Marine commanders have better things to be worrying about, but still, never once in 10 years to have visited it on your own ship is quite remarkable. Because let's not forget here, the Templars are a fleet-based chapter. It's not like they're chilling in their fortress monastery in their off time, only to use their ships for transport. For them, their vessels are home, integral to the Crusade. And so it speaks volumes to that ingrained hatred and mindset that the Castellan is only now setting foot within the chamber. And indeed, the very next words out of his mouth reinforce it. Abhor the witch, destroy the witch, I mutter into the shadows. Darkness harbours darkness. It is good we came here first. They may carry taint of Psyker within them, Brother Castellan, but they have gazed upon the face of the God Emperor himself. Despite his words, a dim glow crackles in the darkness as the chaplain ignites the power field around his Crozius. Still no response to your Vox missives, I ask. Dant shakes his head, and no word at all from the command cathedrum since the moment the storm first struck. A growing unease settles in my chest as we venture on. The vessel shivers again, and I taste metal on my tongue. Shipmaster Catry assures me that this storm will pass, but there are some perils that I cannot tolerate. Even soulbound to the God Emperor as they are, the astropaths within this chamber are a conduit to the ruinous powers, beacons within the unclean Emprian to forces that we have sworn to fight. I fear that we have arrived too late. Overhead, hoarfrost coats the carved joints that support the chamber's soaring ceiling. The scent of blood lingers on the damp air. A slight breeze in a chamber that should be utterly still. Adepts I call, tiring of the silence. My voice fills the hollow, vaulted space. The ship shivers again, and the temperature plummets. Dant's breath emerges from his helm in thick gouts of fog. Only silence meets us. I tighten my grip on Penitence's hilt. Brother Chaplain Dant kneels beside a row of dim statues, grey stone carved in the memory of twisted, gaunt practitioners of the psionic arts. It is blasphemy, brother, I sub-vocalise, to feel the taint of the warp within this holy vessel. This is the price of our tolerance, to allow the sin of the Psyker within our midst. It is good we came, the chaplain replies, whatever awaits us. Despite his temperance, I feel righteous indignation blinding me. We suffer no Psykers within our brotherhood for a reason. Other chapters may consider that a weakness, but we know it to be our strength. Other chapters are not the God Emperor's Crusaders. Other chapters are not the Sons of Dawn. So you can feel that hatred oozing out of the Castellan here, in the very way that he thinks, in the way that he speaks. There are some perils I cannot tolerate. It is blasphemy. This is the price of our tolerance. And what exactly is that price? They haven't even found anything yet. They're in a dark room that is manned by blind people. Those statues are loyal servants who gave their life in service to the Emperor, to the Templars themselves, the very vessel they serve on. Yet the Templars only see twisted, gaunt practitioners of the psionic arts. Their loyalty and service not even a factor. Completely disregarded. Ignored. And you can see how that belief is reinforced in the Castellan's righteous indignation. We suffer no Psykers within our brotherhood for a reason. Other chapters may consider that a weakness, but we know it to be our strength. Now, there is a strength to having no Psykers, of course. No effects of the warp to worry about. No mutation. However, there is undoubted weakness too. A powerful weapon lost. And you can't help but feel that hypocrisy in the Templars' actions and feelings, because they wouldn't even be able to be on Crusade if it wasn't for these servants of the Emperor. These servants they so despise. However, it continues, and the Templars find the two astropaths kneeling at an altar in the centre of the room. And of course, Castellan Emmerich immediately sees only corruption. But again, the truth is that it's in fact the complete opposite. The ramblings of madmen, the blasphemy of the possessed. My lineman's ear filters out the sound of my footfalls and breath, but even focused, I struggle to make out their speech until I stand only a few feet from the Psykers. Not blasphemy, Brother Castellan, Dant rebukes me. A prayer. I pause. Adepts, the chaplain calls to the mortals. He kneels beside them and rests his crozius upon the altar. Finally, both of the Psykers look up. The twins meet my gaze, the resemblance in their features undeniable. My lord, they speak in unison, their voices heavy and slow, as if woken from a dream. From the corners of their pale, clouded eyes, thin tears of blood drip onto the floor. My disquiet deepens. Where are your acolytes, I demand? Gone. Hiding. We have sent them away. A small blessing. The two Psykers cringe as the vessel shakes again. The urge to vomit rises within me. I have been conditioned from youth to defy the obscene forces that assault this room. I carry no gene weakness for the madness that calls from outside the hull. That the two astropaths have kept their minds despite the flaw they bear is a credit to them both. And yet, it is clear, their wills cannot hold any longer. You know why we are here, do you not? I ask them. The astropaths gaze past me, distracted for a moment by something only they can hear. Yes, they reply in unison. There is fear in their voices, but they mask it well. Both mutants turn towards me and lower their hoods. You honour yourselves with your courage, Dant tells them. May the God Emperor's light watch over your souls. Penitence flashes in the darkness. Their whispering ceases. So far from possessed mutants and heretics here, corrupted servants of chaos, the astropaths were nothing but heroes, valiant loyal servants of the God Emperor. Here they travelled within the Immaterium aboard the vessel. It's not their fault the ship hit dangerous currents within the Immaterium. that the Gellerfield flickered, exposing the warp. Yet even still, they didn't fall to possession and corruption. Despite the pressure, they reacted instead brilliantly and professionally, sending their adepts away from them, to hide, to safety, knowing that they themselves are targets to the demon, and that they can only resist for so long. And far from giving in, they did resist, praying to the God Emperor. So much so that they had resisted, had held off the ruinous powers, held themselves together, and even willingly gave their lives to the Castellan, knowing what must be done. That does not deserve the scorn of the Castellan. It deserves praise, recognition. In every breath, you can just feel the disdain, disgust dripping from the Castellan here. But at least in comparison, the chaplain seems far more measured, able to see and appreciate the loyalty and courage displayed by the astropaths, despite his chapter's beliefs. He doesn't seem to categorize it unlike the Castellan, perhaps more appreciating of the faith in the Emperor as a chaplain himself. Unfortunately, we can't say for sure, but it's deserving that he can at least recognize their courage and their effort. But this whole interaction is a perfect symbol for the Templar attitude as a whole. How that ingrained tenet and attitude of the chapter can really blind them to the reality of the situation. Now we'd also receive a brief view of the Castellan's interaction with the vessel's navigator, and the hatred for the witch and mutant clearly remains. A menial of the Navis Nobilite steps aside as I storm past him, bowing deeply and mumbling a greeting. I do not knock upon the door to the sanctum. Instead, I throw it open. I am not surprised at what I find within. Navigator Nendeu churns inside her cradle, her thin, abhuman form writhing with each shiver of the vessel in the warp. Golden cables bind her to the throne on which she sits, dripping trails of crimson blood from where their barbed mouths pierce her dark skin. A black veil hangs over the mortal's forehead, but even with her third eye covered, I find my gaze avoiding her countenance. Golden-robed attendants swarm about her, ministering to their master with frenzied, anxious haste. Their voices rise and fall in lilting High Gothic, interspersed with the unrecognisable, private tongue that their cloistered faction has developed after generations aboard this ship. The room drips with fear. I push the navigator's attendants aside and set my fists upon her throne. The chatter of her acolytes rises, yet none attempt to remove me from their master. I feel shame on the navigator's behalf. For me to set my hands upon a lord of the Navis Nobilite borders upon sacrilege. Again here, it's a very disrespectful attitude for the service given. A service so sorely needed. The navigator here, Nendeu, is single-handedly keeping the vessel on course, intact, guiding it through the crashing currents of the Imperium as best she can. And yet the Castellan offers nothing but sacrilege in return. Yes, the situation is dire. They are struggling amid the warp, facing death. But again, that's not because the Psykers are bored. It's in actual fact despite them. Were it not for her, that death would have already come. Were it not for the astropaths resisting chaos, the vessel would already be fighting a demonic incursion. It's a great little display of how dependent on Psykers they truly are, and how despite the hatred of the Templar chapter, they are still just as dependent on them as everyone else. A fact the Castellan doesn't even seem to realise. But there's at least a kernel of respect delivered by the Castellan here to the Navigator. Recognising the dire situation, he prepares to shut off power to the warp drive, forcing a translation back to real space, which he informs her, offering a salute of the Aquila for her courage as he departs. And I think it can all be summed up by one final remark regarding the Navigator by the Castellan after the catastrophic warp exit. Knowing that she has suffered greatly, most likely mortally, in her attempts to keep them alive. She showed bravery in the end, despite the weakness she carries within her. And that's it. That is the core of it all. The Castellan just can't look past that perception of it being a weakness, a flaw. He simply can't fathom she was just brave. For him, it had to be showing bravery despite the weakness. And I guess at the end of the day, that inescapable viewpoint not only sums up the chapter, but it sums up the very Imperium itself. But as always everyone, what do you think? What do you think of the Templars' treatment of the Psykers who serve their chapter? Those loyal servants of the Imperium, who give everything for the God Emperor, who here have fought valiantly to remain pure, remain loyal, providing a huge service to the chapter, actively keeping the Castellan and the vessel safe, but are only rewarded with scorn and disrespect. Does the Black Templar chapter actually represent the Imperium they serve the best, out of all the chapters of the Astartes? Or do you think there could be another? Are the Black Templars the perfect example of what the returned Primarch Rabute Guilliman is trying to eradicate? Do you think Guilliman would wish to wipe out the Templar chapter if the situation were different? If he wasn't so desperate for their numbers? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.